Was the Roman Empire truly doomed or just terribly, spectacularly messy? Did emperors really just trip over their own feet and barbarians casually stroll into the throne room? Let's dive into a whirlwind tour of the late Roman world, a time of shifting alliances, brutal betrayals, and enough political maneuvering to make Machiavelli blush. Forget dusty textbooks, this is a story of ambition, survival, and a whole lot of bloodshed. It began, predictably, with Stilicho. A Vandal by birth, a Roman by loyalty, or perhaps just a very good soldier, he was the man tasked with holding the West together after Theodosius I shuffled off this mortal coil. Picture this, 408 AD. The Rhine is a sieve, the Danube a raging torrent, and Alaric, the Visigothic king, is sharpening his knives. Stilicho, a towering figure with a reputation for ruthlessness, was desperately trying to build a bulwark against the barbarian tide, but he was fighting a war on two fronts, against the Goths and against his own increasingly suspicious colleagues in Constantinople. He advocated a scorched earth policy against Alaric, a brutal strategy of annihilation, but the Eastern Empire, perpetually suspicious of his Vandal origins, refused to commit the resources needed to truly crush the Gothic threat. It was a classic case of bureaucratic inertia meeting existential crisis. Then came the Rhine crossing, 406 AD. A chaotic, desperate scramble of tribes, the Quadi, the Rugi, the Alans, and the Vandals pouring into Gaul, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. It wasn't a single, coordinated invasion, it was a desperate exodus, a panicked flight from the rising power of Attila the Hun. The Romans, already stretched thin, were utterly overwhelmed. The chaos in Gaul sparked a chain reaction. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, were emboldened, and Stilicho, facing mounting pressure and a crumbling army, found himself ousted from power in 408. A swift, brutal coup orchestrated by Olympius, a Greek official, and his associates. Stilicho, a man who had once held the fate of the West in his hands, was left to choose between a public humiliation and a swift death. He opted for the latter, a grim reminder that in the late Roman world, loyalty was a fleeting commodity. Meanwhile, across the Black Sea, a different kind of drama was unfolding. Attila, the Hunnic king, was building an empire of terror, and the Eastern Roman Empire was desperately seeking a way to appease him. Enter one Gesius, the most senior figure at Attila's court. Imagine the scene, a delegation of Roman officials, laden with gold and promises, attempting to negotiate with a man who considered tribute a mere formality. Priscus, a Roman historian, documented this embassy in excruciating detail, painting a picture of a terrifying, almost surreal encounter. Priscus described Attila as a figure of immense power, a whirlwind of violence and charisma, utterly detached from the concerns of diplomacy. He wasn't interested in treaties or alliances, he wanted gold and he wanted it now. The embassy, a desperate gamble, ultimately failed to secure any meaningful concessions, highlighting the sheer scale of Attila's dominance. Back in Italy, things were equally turbulent. The death of Stilicho created a power vacuum, and opportunistic politicians quickly moved to exploit it. Orestes, a Pannonian landowner, saw an opportunity to seize the throne. He leveraged his connections with Attila. He was, after all, Attila's ambassador to orchestrate a coup, overthrowing Emperor Valentinian III and installing his own puppet, Romulus Augustulus. It was a pathetic display of power, a symbolic gesture that confirmed what everyone already knew: the Western Roman Empire was crumbling. Romulus Augustulus, a boy of just 14, became the last Roman emperor in the West, a figurehead whose existence served only to mask the reality of Roman decline. But the story wasn't just about emperors and generals. It was about the rise of new powers, the shifting alliances, and the brutal realities of survival. Ricimer, a patrician with a pedigree stretching back to Visigothic royalty, emerged as the real power behind the throne. He wasn't interested in restoring the glory of Rome, he was interested in consolidating his own authority. He executed Majorian, a rival claimant to the throne, and then backed Anthemius, a military commander who promised to reconquer North Africa. Ricimer was essentially a 5th century version of Stilicho, desperately trying to hold the empire together with a combination of force and political maneuvering. He understood that the old Roman order was gone, and that the future belonged to the new barbarian powers. Then there were the Goths, a complex and fractious people who played a pivotal role in the empire's demise. The Visigoths, led by Alaric and later by his successor, Fritigern, were constantly vying for land and resources. Sarus, a Gothic noble and a staunch enemy of Alaric, served Stilicho and Honorius, demonstrating the complex web of loyalties and betrayals that characterized the era. Sergeric, Sarus' brother, was the architect of the coup that brought down Valentinian III, a chilling illustration of the ruthlessness that prevailed in Roman politics. Across the Danube, the Ostrogoths, under the leadership of Valdemar and his nephew Theoderic the Amal, were consolidating their power. They weren't simply nomadic warriors, they were a sophisticated military force, capable of uniting disparate Gothic warbands and challenging the authority of the Eastern Empire. Theoderic's ambition was simple: to establish a stable, independent kingdom in Italy. He defeated Odovacar, a rebellious Eastern Gothic leader, and seized control of the peninsula, effectively ending Roman rule in the west. And what of Attila? The Hunnic king, a figure of legend and terror, was a constant threat to the empire. Rua, a Hunnic king who ruled in the 420s and 430s, is believed to have played a key role in centralizing Hunnic power, creating a more unified and efficient military force. The Huns weren't simply raiders, they were a transformative force, reshaping the political landscape of Europe. Shapur I, the Sasanian king of Persia, recognized this and launched a series of devastating campaigns against the Roman Empire, forcing the Romans to divert resources and attention away from the barbarian threat. The late Roman world was a patchwork of shifting loyalties, desperate alliances, and brutal conflicts. Petronius Maximus, an Italian senator who attempted to usurp the throne in 455, met a gruesome end at the hands of the Vandal invaders. Sidonius Apollinaris, a Gallic landowner and poet, documented the decline of the empire in his letters, capturing the mood of despair and uncertainty that permeated Roman society. Theophanes, a Byzantine bureaucrat, meticulously recorded the endless paperwork and administrative complexities of the late Roman state, a testament to the empire's slow, agonizing decline. Then there was the enigmatic Severinus, a holy man who lived in the remote province of Noricum. His life, penned by Eugipius, offers a fascinating glimpse into the social and political landscape of the late Roman Empire, a time of economic hardship, political instability, and growing religious fervor. Finally, there's the story of Theodosius II, the last emperor to rule over both East and West. He inherited a crumbling empire and struggled to maintain order amidst a sea of chaos. He oversaw the completion of the Theodosian Code, a monumental legal achievement, but his reign was marked by constant challenges and political intrigue. So, was the Roman Empire doomed? Perhaps not entirely. It was certainly in a state of profound crisis, beset by internal divisions, external threats, and a fundamental inability to adapt to the changing circumstances of the 5th century. But the story of the late Roman world is not simply a tale of decline. It's a story of resilience, adaptation, and the rise of new powers. The Roman legacy didn't simply vanish, it evolved, transforming into the foundations of new kingdoms and cultures. But let's return to the chilling final image: Honorius, the last Roman emperor in the West, watching as Olympius, the man who had orchestrated Stilicho's downfall, was clubbed to death. A brutal, undignified end for a once great empire. A stark reminder that even the most powerful institutions can be brought down by ambition, betrayal, and a fundamental lack of foresight. And as we close this whirlwind tour of the late Roman world, one final question lingers. If the Roman Empire could fall so spectacularly, what does that tell us about the fragility of power, the inevitability of change, and the enduring allure of a good story?